Hello and good evening and welcome to the Sheffield Society of Architects virtual building visit series brought to you by the Sheffield Society of Architects and RIBA Yorkshire. So please be aware that this event is being recorded for the benefit of others. So you can keep your cameras switched on or off, that's up to you, they're on at the minute for some people, but we are requesting that you keep your microphones muted throughout, please. So just before we introduce the event, the deadline for the lockdown drawing challenge is on the 1st of June with prizes announced first week of July. So in case you aren't aware of it, we would like you to send in a sketch that you've done during a lockdown. It doesn't have to be the most recent lockdown, it can go back to 2020, but it does have to be a sketch or a drawing that you've done of one of your favourite buildings, spaces or places of any location on earth. Email it through to the Sheffield Society email, Society of Architects email, which is Sheffield Society of Architects @gmail.com. Include a short description about it, about the subject building, why you chose it, along with your name and age to us. And later on, we'll select a category and a winner from each age category. So do send them in. We're excited about seeing them. Today's tour, Sky House, is being presented by David Cross, the director and co-founder, who will take us on a journey of Sky House. So really quickly, really briefly, Sky House Co is a house builder aiming to create close-knit communities via a 21st century take on the traditional Victorian back-to-back homes. So if you do see a Sky House, you can identify it by its large windows and roof garden, which focuses views onto the sky, giving its name Sky House. It has successfully taken off in Waverley, Rotherham, and you can spot them from quite a distance. They're opposite some of the AMRC buildings, and there are more Sky Houses underway at different sites. There will be time for Q&A at the end, so please do send in your questions using the chat box, and we will aim to pass them on at the end. So I'll hand over now to David.
Okay, so my name's David Cross. I'm an architect based in Sheffield, and in 2008 I started wondering what we were going to do with the city centre residential market after the financial crash. The idea started out as a concept called Back, which was a play on the back-to-back terraces and the Victorian sort of slum clearances that had occurred in Sheffield and other cities across Britain. So what is Sky House? Well, we're aiming to sort of fill in the missing middle of the housing market. We want to create gentle, dense communities, compact communities, blended communities, so mixed use. We want to create affordable, sustainable and durable houses. So let me go on to the next screen. So our mission is to create these sustainable, dense communities. We want to allow people to access the property ladder. We want to build architecture that is desirable, that creates response to its vernacular. It's not just any town, any place architecture that you would see if you were in a national house builder's product. So in 2008, when we had the apartment crash and the financial crash in Sheffield, at that point, the city was building, before the sort of taller buildings recently, most of the schemes that we were designing for developers were 4 or 5 stories. Ground floor would be commercial. And when the apartment market crashed, we were wondering, what do we do with our business model? We are urban architects doing that kind of thing. So I started looking at the historic maps. Every time we submitted a planning application, we would see all the slum clearances, all these tight-knit communities. You'd look at the photographs of Victorian streets with children playing in the street. People were living where they worked. And obviously there were issues with the back-to-back concept at that point, which was dark and dank, no insulation, small windows, basements. You might be living next to a foundry or a steel works and it was dirty and noisy and all that kind of stuff. But there was something in that still had this sort of cosy, close-knit theme that I quite liked. I was born and brought up in a terrace house in Birdwell in Barnsley, so I've loved the linear runs of terrace houses. So Sky House actually creates triple the density of a national house builder. We get between 40 and 50 houses per acre. And if you think about the UK housing market, what you've really got is sort of the national house builders building suburban houses, terraced houses, townhouses, semi-detached, quite formulaic. And then you've got the housing associations delivering a very similar product for shared tenure, rent, shared equity, things like that. And then you've got the city market where you've got high rise, you've got PRS, and you've got the student developments, but there's nothing really in the middle that sort of fills that gap. And what we wanted to try to create was something that was naturally sustainable, that wasn't gimmicky sustainable. We've done low energy houses that had loads of gizmos that were too complex to use, that might fail, that might not really work. We also, you see the architecture coming out of different modular systems that aren't really durable in my mind, where I call it the scooter test. If my little boy was playing on his scooter and he banged into the wall, would the wall dint, would it scratch? And if it did, what would happen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years when you can't replace that product because it's obsolete or it's weathered, it's damaged? So it needed to be durable. I like brick, I like stone, I like the traditional materials that you find in Britain that weather well. They're not particularly rendered, not particularly clad. And then I like the idea of the old street in Birdwell where I grew up. There must have been 10 shops across the street and over a period of about 2 miles. So I like the idea of the pubs, the hairdressers, the shops, the greengrocers, and so on. But then how do we then stack the houses up? How do we make the staircases work when you've got a single aspect house? I was well aware of all the negative connotations of single aspect living. London banned them for a while and then it came back. Manchester did and then it came back. And there's a certain inherent efficiency to this, because if we're trying to build beautiful architecture that's sustainable, it's not just possible to do that for everybody, for every house. So how could we make that beautiful? So the back-to-back kept coming back in my mind of that, and then layering it zone by zone. So the ground floor could be living, it could be a live work. You could have 2 sharers, you could have families in there. You've got bathrooms per floor, and then the roof garden on top with lots of sunlight. Do the next slide. So this was the first iteration. I think is it on T1 yet?
Yeah.
Yep, good. So this was the prototype, the T1, the Sky T1. So this is reasonably spacious as a house. We've got 4 floors of living. You've got the open plan ground floor with the downstairs toilet. We've also, underneath the stairs is a little utility cupboard, so you can do the washing, you stick your washing in there and it doesn't bang away and disturb you when you're watching Netflix. We've got 2 double bedrooms. On the first floor, there's also a terrace. So again, you could dry your clothes on there behind the parapet. So it's not like a Chinese laundry to look at. We've got another floor of living bedrooms with a family bathroom. So if you've got children, you can bath your children comfortably. But equally, this could be 2 sharers, 2 professional sharers. So it'd work for the buy-to-let market, the rental market, the PRS market, the homeowner market. And finally, go on to the top floor, a small living space that you could use for desk, for a home office. You could use it for listening to music and so on. But all the while, big windows, lots of natural light coming in, and as you can imagine, you've only really got 1 external wall. So what you get with the heat loss is minimised naturally. So this is the sort of built product that we have. So this is Waverley 1. What you can see on the image on the left is actually a 4-bed end terrace. And then the back-to-backs go behind that, so you can see the sawtooth roofs, you can see the sort of bin stores, the terrace, and then it goes up to the top floor. And the top floor roof garden's actually hidden away, but you can see on the image on the right that actually they're very private. You could sunbathe up there without any neighbours overlooking you. You can see the kitchen. We used a Carl Benz kitchen, a beautiful German product. And then the bedrooms and the bathrooms with a more luxurious interior for the show house that we decided to go for. What we've done on later designs, so if you remember, the T1 had a small top floor living space. What we've done on the next iteration of the Sky House, if you look at the image on the left, where you've got the terrace, the houses are actually all that width. They go up all the way a bit wider, which creates bigger bedrooms, bigger bathrooms, and also bigger roof gardens. So in terms of land use, hopefully that's gone on to the next slide.
Yeah.
If you take the Victorian, this is the house that I grew up in. So we had on-street parking, if you were lucky. And actually, when I was growing up, obviously there weren't that many cars. But you would park on the street, you would have a footpath. We had a small front garden. My mum and my next door neighbour Eileen would sit on the doorstep, smoke a cigarette while I played on the triangle opposite with my friends. Little terraced house, little backyard, the outside toilet that would be invariably removed and used for storage, And then behind that, we had what we call the backs, which was a little lane that accessed the backs of the houses. If you then take the National House, you've got a similar orientation. You've got the road, the footpath, but then the parking's in curtilage because everybody wants to park in the curtilage. So I'm using a townhouse example here, not just a detached house. You may have a small front garden. You then may have your house, which will be a little bit longer. And then you've got your 50 square metre back garden that's enclosed with close-board timber fences. If you then take the Sky House model, we've got parking in either a courtyard or on later iterations of Sky House schemes. The parking would be in a separate location away from the houses. But you can see we've got a ground floor patio, a first floor balcony and a top floor roof garden. So the amenity spaces are taken from the back garden or the Victorian yard and scattered at different levels throughout the house. But that gives us the densities that we can achieve with this, which are far superior to Victorian and indeed a national house builder. What we're also looking at is with centralised parking, we've got EV charging solutions. We're looking at car sharing on one of our schemes in Sheffield city centre. We want people to reduce the need and the dependency on a car. As I've said, to put the garden on the roof. And we want the idea of the front garden where you can have a natter with your neighbour like my mum and Eileen did. The amenity space, you've got the ground floor one patio, you could sit and talk to your neighbour. The first floor balcony, you may sit and read a book. And the top floor garden, you could have a barbecue. Buyers in Waverley have got hot tubs on there, which scared our engineers a little bit, but it seems to work okay. But we've got double the density of a Victorian suburb. And if you think about Victorian suburbs, if you think about, particularly in Sheffield, Shire Vale, Ecclesall Road, we've got extremely dense environments, but with beautiful parks. We've got lots of independent businesses all along Ecclesall Road, along Shire Vale Road. And these are all types of places people want to go and things that people want to do. With a typical estate design, the problem is you have the cul-de-sacs. People are car dependent. You can't walk from cul-de-sac to cul-de-sac easily. You've got to walk out and in, and then you may have at the end of the estate there might be a Tesco, Metro or other car dependent places to go. So that's the sort of land use idea that we have, which gives us our density. How that then has that come up?
Yeah, that's
okay.
nice.
Yeah, so that's more of a cluster. So if you imagine, on the left-hand side one, that is our current Waverley concept. So on the end block, which is a 4-bed house, that could easily be a ground floor commercial, first floor commercial, second floor commercial, or ground floor commercial, upper floors could be apartments. So we can bookend the developments with different uses at Waverley. Because of the new Olive Lane development, we haven't got any commercial on at Waverley. The blocks of houses at Waverley are separated by about 25 metres, and that's due to the car parking in between. We've since moved on with Oughtibridge, which is the right-hand version, where the car parking is further away. The Oughtibridge blocks are only 12 metres apart. But you can see how the back-to-backs work, how you can intersperse them with different types, so they don't all have to be the same type. You could have single-storey buildings in between. You could have 3-storey, 4-storey townhouses. You could have commercial. Right, and then you could mix these together. So if you look at the left-hand image there with the sort of peachy colour, that could be a commercial frontage, tree-lined streets. We could create an archway through to a private residence courtyard. The image on the right shows how you could mix the two together. So you could have private residence courtyards with little passageways through to communal gardens, pocket play, areas for kids to play, adults to play. So you could have all sorts of things, vegetable gardens if you want them. And what we wanted to try to do, and we haven't yet mastered it or achieved it, the commercial space could in future be allocated and shared as ownership by the residents. And what that would mean is they could choose to rent it to Starbucks if they want for £20 a square foot and get a bigger yield and an income that might pay for the gardens to be maintained. Or they could let Bob at number 15 have it rent-free to run a creche. So we want the commercial to almost be part of the community that the community have ownership of. So these are all concepts that haven't yet been realised, but can be realised in the future. And again, if we use these sort of dislocated car parking courtyards, What we can do then is we can easily get the EV charging. We could introduce car clubs and so on, and that then reduces the propensity for people to use cars. So the next one is a kind of a sectional study on how the idea came about. So if you take the apartment section, so I am going back to sort of 2000s up to 2010. A lot of the schemes we were doing in Sheffield at that time were about 5 stories. They were typically red brick. They would have a ground floor of commercial that was invariably empty. So if you take the next box, if you just slice off the commercial and say, okay, we're really building 4 floors of accommodation. If you then look at the next one, which is a typical 3-story national house builder section, that gives you the sort of volume that they would do. And then after that, you can see the Sky House section. And then the final one shows a comparison. So what we've got on the comparison is the pink area is the loss of volume. So in a typical run, you may get 2 national house builder houses, you may get 4 Sky houses, or you may get 8 apartments. So the density is pretty good. And that's sort of the backdrop of where Sky House came from. So it was an attempt to re-densify without necessarily using apartments. It was an attempt to create affordability, durability, flexibility, and sustainability that make it in a price point that was affordable, a product that banks would lend on. The banks were terrified of flying freeholds, floating freeholds, apartments. So building houses again was something that the surveyors would be comfortable with, something the banks would be comfortable with. And actually people in England do like houses opposed to people in Europe who might be more happy living in apartments. So who are we? So Sky House is really a 13-year-old idea, but we are probably 4 or 5 years into our history as a proper official business. So we've grown rapidly over the coronavirus period from being me and Philip. So Philip's an accountant, he's a developer, he's been a developer for many years. We came together to do Sky House at Waverley. We didn't really think it was going to take off as a big brand. We thought it'd be a development that we may build, sell and move on and do our own separate things again, but it seemed to catch the public's eye, the attention of Homes England, who have been brilliant in funding us. And since coronavirus, we've grown the team from just me and Philip to what you can see there, which I think is about 19 staff. I think we've had our 20th member of staff join this week as well. So we've got QSs, we've got accountants, we've been very lucky to recruit Ryan, who's our operations director. He's brought in a team of construction people from Dan to Richard. We've got Rebecca, who's also a chartered architect. She's our design manager. We've got Matt, who's customer service. And then we've got a series of site managers. And then we also managed to call on Mark Rosendale, who was the ex-MD of Strata Homes. He's helping us build the brand. He's helping us sort of think more like a house builder, but without losing our edge as being sort of architect-driven, flexible in our approach to what we do. So he's bringing that rigor into the team. We've also, in the coronavirus period, managed to finally get our own office. So we've moved into Centenary Works in Sheffield, and what we've tried to do with the Sky House HQ is not create just an office. We want it to be more of an event space, a showroom where you can come. So you can see on one of the images there, we've got a model of Oughtibridge Mill. We want our customers to come, we want our funders, our stakeholders, our partners, our subcontractors, everybody who works with us, come have a beer, have a glass of wine, have a good coffee. We can have parties here, we can bring buyers, they can look at the sample walls, they can look at the materials, they can go through the design options. So it's more like a showroom, an event space. We're currently in phase 2 of the office, where we're hopefully going to have more hot desking, and we want to do the Sky Academy, where we do training courses for members of our team, our subcontractors, because we are moving into different technologies, as I'll show later. So the Sky House office is great. We've got all the sort of neon lights, the logos everywhere. And it's not just about the buildings. We are trying to be more responsible. So we've got initiatives at the moment where we're talking to the Carbon Footprint Charity. We want to make all of our construction projects carbon negative. So hopefully we'll be launching that in the next couple of weeks. And the carbon footprint charity does work all over the world, from eco-friendly cooking pots in Sudan to rewilding projects in Britain to rainforest projects in South America. We're also, as of our next development, Fox Valley, Waverley 2 and Oughtibridge, we will be zero gas already. So we're looking at electrical systems. So we've got air source cylinders, heat recovery, electric radiators. We've got solar panels, we've got electric EV charging points, SUDs within all our developments, low energy everything, and highly insulated, triple glazing, double glazing, wherever we can. We're just trying to do a fabric first approach to our houses. We also want to buy local. So I founded CODA in 2003. We were a small business, an SME practice, and we want to work with similar size, like-minded SMEs rather than the big corporates. And we're committed to training and educating. So I'm from Barnsley. I want to encourage people from Barnsley, from anywhere in the UK, to come and work with us, to be educated in whatever skill set they've got. So we're not really bothered if you're property people or not. If you've got a love and a desire to work for us and do something innovative and brilliant, we want you to come and apply. And we'll be doing training events, as I've said, in the second phase in the Sky Academy as we launch that. We've also done the painful customer review, which, as an architect in previous life doing commissions for developers, you would never really go back to a project. It was very unusual. You would design it, everyone would be a prototype. It would be handed over, and you might not ever go back. You might not go back and talk to the customers. So around November, December last year, I went to visit, I made appointments to take all the buyers that had completed at Waverley for a drink at the local pub and ask them what they thought. And some of the things that people have said is, design lovers, I just love it, beautiful product, I knew in my heart straight away I was going to buy it. Obviously there were some criticisms, but we'll not share the criticisms, we'll just stick with the positives for now. But we're quite proud of what we've done. We did think we were starting out as a first-time buyer type product, but actually all of the buyers said they found that a bit derogatory, because they came to Sky House because they loved it. They loved the design, they loved the way the house worked on the levels, not just because of its price point. So we've also done lots of other things. It's not just about a design or a house or what we do with the community. There's lots and lots of things that go into building a house. And as an architect, you're not really aware of that half of the time. How do you sell them? How do you maintain them? How do you snag them? And all sorts of other things. So we're working with CODA and Eastwood and Partners, and everything's on BIM. We are currently in the process of being BOPAS accredited, which allows us to build off-site. We've got a CMS website which talks to our CRM system, so we can take inquiries that feed through to our CRM. We can also allow people, our customers, to log into the website when they purchased a house. Again, they can upload snagging issues, they can contact us about faults. That automatically goes into our CRM. That talks to our teams, our site teams and our customer service teams. We've also integrated Procore construction management software, which is sort of end-to-end construction management, so we can have full visibility of progress on site, photographs on site, issues. We can look at what contracts have been let, how much we've spent to date, how much more we've got to spend. That talks to our accountancy software, to Receipt Bank, and we're also working with EOS at the moment for SFS steel frame system. So Waverley 2 will be our first semi-offsite built house. And all this has been done in the last 12 months, which has been quite intense, as you can imagine. So on to our projects. So I've already discussed Waverley 1. So we have 44 houses in 4 blocks, 4 linear blocks. We work closely with Harworth to create this sort of linear form all the way down what is called Lescar Road, or what they'd call Waverley Walk. Waverley Walk will link the new Olive Lane development to the school and beyond to the lakes. So this is 42 bed houses, 4 4-bed houses, and this is the T1. We're very lucky to get to the Yorkshire Property Awards finals for Best Innovation and also the National Planning Awards in 2020. Oughtibridge Mill, this is our next development. This is now on site. Absolutely amazing site in the north of Sheffield, in the Upper Don Valley, a beautiful verdant valley, trees on both sides. We've got Usher Woods to one side, we've got Warncliffe Woods to the other side. We've got the River Don running right below the balconies of those end specials that you can see there. And this is, so we bought this. Barrett's introduced us. Barrett's David Wilson bought this site from CEG. They asked us to come to the table and said, would you build Sky House here? Would you do something innovative? So we've taken the mill cottages, and we've got 2 acres of land and also a woodland. We're restoring the mill into what's called a grocerant, I believe, by the people who operate the Cutlery Works in Sheffield, which is a food hall for those who aren't in Sheffield. So effectively the mill will be the community hub, with a raised terrace to one side, another terrace to the other side. You will be able to come and have a burger, a beer, whatever the stalls are. It'll be an ever-changing sort of lineup of startups, small businesses doing great food. And hopefully what you'll also be able to do is buy food from the deli. You'll also be able to log on to their app and get a delivery to your house via an electric milk float. Hopefully, I hope they commit to that. We're restoring the old mill cottages into 4 apartments and a cottage. And then we've got 3 blocks of Sky houses with the end specials. And then we have 5 townhouses as well. And what you can see from the sort of bullet points, this is traditional build. This is a management contract, but we are aiming to get more and more efficient. It's built of natural stone. We've got zinc cladding. We've got the roof gardens. But we're introducing all the tech now, so the air source cylinders, the zero gas, the heat recovery, the photovoltaics, the EV charging, and so on. So we're getting more eco with what we do. Then we have Fox Valley. Fox Valley is much more traditional in terms of the terrace house approach, but you can see from the sort of semi-aerial view, we've got a roof garden on the back, and you'll see from the drone footage shortly, behind the houses is a large gabion wall to the upper side of the site where there are some other new houses. But again, this is traditional construction. We weren't brave enough at this point to go full SFS at this point. But again, it's got all the tech in it. I think the EPCs will be B+, EV charging, all the usual stuff. We also have Waverley 2, which is probably the most innovative so far. So that will be SFS steel frame with all the toys, the air source and all that kind of stuff. That's now on site. That's 44 houses again. It's 43 beds and 4 beds. And we've sold 4 already. We haven't even launched, which is amazing. And then we've got Devonshire Quarter. This is a bit of a design shift. So we're looking at how can we respond to the vernacular of that area. So we've got a mini tower of 7 stories of apartments. We're looking at arches, we're looking at brick detailing, we're looking at turning the roofs around. We're looking at options on these roof gardens where we might have a glazed roof option where you could slide the windows open and have an open roof garden, or you could have a closed roof garden and grow vegetables. You could grow peaches or vine groves or whatever you want to do. But again, it's got a communal central garden. We're looking at putting sheds in there for bikes, stores. And interestingly, on Devonshire Quarter, we've only got 8 parking spaces for 50 homes. So we're being really brave on this one. It was quite a leap of faith in the first instance to build a scheme with only 1-for-1 parking for most of the houses. Some of the critics were saying, well, who's going to buy a house with only 1 parking space? Well, Waverley 1 sold out very quickly. Oughtibridge Mill was sold 90% of phase 1 already. Waverley 2 we're already selling. Fox Valley was sold 4 already, and we're getting inquiries already for Devonshire Quarter. But again, this will be SFS steel frame, air source, heat recovery, double glazing, EV charging, solar panels, and hopefully we'll get more and more eco as we get better at doing this. And then we've got a fantastic project in Mallorca. So in the sort of mould of Taylor Wimpey, or a national house builder, we've got there Taylor Wimpey España. We're wondering whether we could do Sky House Spain. But this is perfect for Sky House. It's a town centre location in a place called Cap de Pera in the northeast of the island. So you can see the front elevation is in a Majorcan sort of vernacular with local stone, with the sort of raked window reveals. We've got ground floor car parking, 2 apartments stacked on top of each other. But each of the apartments, when you go into the rear, has its own courtyard, its own pool. Each of the 2-bed apartments have their own casitas, which is a Spanish sort of 1-bed cottage. So you can have guests and your own private garden. And one of them is lucky enough to have sea views as well. So we've got quite a diverse spread there. But what we're looking at on top of all of that is the intellectual property. So as architects, we often design buildings. Everyone is unique, everyone's brand new, everyone's a prototype. You make learnings from every project you do. But what we've tried to do with Sky House is say, okay, we've got a common chassis for most of the house types. Can we create a house type library that we can change the elevations, the window proportions, the roof to fit the different locations where we might build? We've trademarked the brand. We're looking at a Sky factory where we may be able to make our own steel frames in the future, so we become a semi-MMC type operator. And we're also looking at other parts of the missing middle. So we're looking at our bungalow model, the Skylark model, where we create all the mission vision values of Sky House about gentle density, about naturally sustainable and robust and durable and flexible. Can we do that for the downsizer market? Can we do that in areas where, if you're less affluent and you can't afford to downsize from maybe a local authority house or a terraced house, can we create a beautiful bungalow in these areas? Think about all the villages in Barnsley where I grew up. Can we create something that's naturally affordable for people to downsize? So we're constantly trying to innovate. We're not just churning out the same house type. We want to solve some of the sort of macro housing problems. So obviously I spoke earlier about the brand. We started off in 2008 thinking about how we could re-densify cities and towns. And actually from there it's exploded. We've completed one project of 44. We've got 3 on site, Fox Valley, Oughtibridge and Waverley 2. We've got 2 in planning. We've got 2 more in pre-planning and 2 more in legals. So that gives us nearly 400 homes now and a sales value of 92 million. So from a effective startup, the numbers are getting really interesting. Homes England have obviously been very instrumental in this. We're funded by them. We're funded by Lloyds Bank as well, and we're close to securing a deal with the pension fund as well to grow the brand even further. And what else have we got? So in terms of the future, we've got another 115 million, another 658 homes on the drawing board. And you can see by the future pipeline, the schemes are larger, the mixed use element is getting larger, so we're delivering more commercial, and another 115 million. So that could be a 250 million pound business in the future, from just scratching my head in 2008 thinking what can we do when no one wants to buy an apartment. So all of this sort of started off in 2013 really. So I started doing developments in 2013 with an old friend from Barnsley who helped seed finance what is our sort of main business called Crossbow. So we've built a few projects now, so you can see all the themes will run through what we do. I like brand. I like to respond to the vernacular. So we did a development in Sheffield City Centre called Bells Court. It was a 1950s warehouse, and we worked with our branding agency at the time to come up with something where the brand would go all the way through, from the sort of 1950s coloured kitchens to the sort of graffiti on the wall by Phonographic. So that was one project. That was 29 apartments. Dunfields was actually our first project, and that was 18 4- and 5-bed houses. We tried to do the back-to-backs then, but the Sheffield Council didn't like the concept at that point. We were still testing it through pre-app. So in the end, we built Dunfields, which had, again, you can see the communal gardens for people to play, but we've also got gym equipment in there. But you can see the terraces at the top with the sky gardens again, or areas you can sit out and enjoy the views of cities. Has the next screen come up? Yeah. We've also built Bento, which was 8 5-bed houses. This was our second attempt at doing back-to-backs, and these are actually interlocking houses. Quite a small development, but quite lovely. Roof gardens again, big windows again, different roof, some roof gardens at first floor, some at second floor, some at ground floor. And then our biggest development to date is Palatine Gardens to the right. But again, even though it's apartments, it's 4 stories, it's traditional construction, it's not a tower block. We've got balconies, we've got double height spaces, duplexes and central courtyard gardens. But again, in our commitment to sort of local businesses, we've also created a 4-bed boutique hotel that Euro will be launching in the next, I think it's 2nd of June it opens, which will be private dining using Luke, who's probably Sheffield's most famous chef. We've also built and retained Crinkle, which was an attempt to create easy in, easy out startup space, but curating the space from the ground floor. We had Euro restaurant, we've got a yoga studio, we've got retail space, we've got a beauty salon, a hair salon, we've got a sky bar, we've got a singing coach, we've got lashes, we've got a woman that does IV vitamin treatments and Botox. So we've got a health and well-being angle within the building. We've got a personal trainer, we've got a little bakery, and we've kept this building. I'm quite proud of it. It was a very difficult project to do, but it's again a commitment to startup businesses, small businesses. I think something like 70 people are employed in there, and it's 100% let, and it's been 100% let all the way through COVID. So right, hopefully I can get the drone footage on. So you'll have to bear with me because this didn't work earlier, did it? Hopefully it'll work. Right. Is that on?
My screen's slow. It might be. It's on.
Yeah. So this is Waverley. You can see the dirt in the front, that's Waverley 2. This is Waverley 1. You can see the bin stores, the patios, the terraces, the roof gardens. You can see in the distance there, the big vacant field, that's going to be Olive Lane. That's going to be a new little high street, startup businesses, boutiques, sitting alongside nationals. You can see the AMP, the MRC, the training centre. And then back down, you can see the sort of linear Waverley walk, which will be tree lined. And to the left of Waverley 1, we've got Waverley 3 and Waverley 4. So in the distance there, you can see Waverley, that's Waverley 2 towards the end. Now I've got another drone footage, if I can get that to come up. Bear with me. Has that come up?
Yeah, it's come up and it's playing.
So you can see Waverley 1 there, all finished with a pocket park in the middle. Then Waverley 2 will be at the side on the right, and then Waverley 3, Waverley 4 behind that. And the designs will change, they'll always change. Behind Waverley 1, we've got a hard backdrop that will square off the courtyards. So it's this is just one piece of the jigsaw that will become a bigger development. This is Oughtibridge. Has that come up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see the mill, you can see the trees, you can see the River Don, you can see the shape of 3 blocks of Sky House, you can see the cottages there. We've also got the car park at the other side of the road where we're going to do EV charging for visitors to the mill. Fantastic site. Barrett's are building, I think it's 240 homes alongside this. So in the end, it'll be about 280 homes plus the mill, which hopefully will become the centrepiece for the community in terms of the terrace, the bars and things like that, and hopefully a bit of co-working and so on. And then we have Fox Valley, so you can see the big Gabion wall That's to the south, so to the left of the screen is south, so we put the roof garden on to get the sun. This was a former working man's club. It's a little brownfield site, but a wonderful location in Stocksbridge. You can see the Memorial Park there, and to the right, Fox Valley Shopping Centre. So on foot, you can walk down, go and do a bit of shopping, go to Ponty's for some pasta, or walk even further up to the reservoirs. So a really good site. Sales are good here as well. And we're also looking at our second site in Stocksbridge, because we think the sales are strong enough to warrant it. So we're looking at a second site for 14 houses, which will be a slightly different design because it's on the other side of the valley. So the roof garden and the views will be switched. So we'll, again, customise our standard house types to create something that's bespoke for that location, but still maintaining the efficiencies that we're trying to build throughout the brand. So we're trying to sort of sit in between what a national house builder does, but do it a little bit sexier, and do it and what the purely bespoke developer would do, which wouldn't be affordable for the average person. So that pretty much concludes what we do.
Thank you. That was a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much for taking us on that journey. It was quite a rich presentation and it encompassed quite a lot of things. So not only homes, you spoke about a lot of things. So construction, MMC, you spoke about even the apprenticeship. It's all quite interesting. For me, I thought what was really good is that you're an architect who has actually branched out. And like you said, there is a lot to the realization of this process and to actually selling a house as well. So that's quite interesting. For me, what I really liked was the public-private streets that you had access through the commercial units, because I can imagine those spaces really coming to life and just being so exciting, because I know that our street is trying to plan a street festival. You can just imagine what you could do with that space. So I'm going to start off, if you haven't already submitted a question, this is your opportunity to do so. I'll start off with 2 comments. So there's one from CW who says, what a brilliant idea to have a communally owned commercial units. Fantastic. And another comment from Catalina Ionita, fantastic progress on Oughtibridge, Dave. And Michael sent in a question. So he says, would you encourage other architects to become, this is Michael Brown, so would you encourage other architects to become developers? And what advantages do you think an architect's mindset can bring to the development process?
Oh, crikey. I think being a developer is a lot more complicated than people think, and I take my hat off to anyone who's done it in the past and who wants to do it in the future. It's not just about drawing pretty pictures. It's not just about submitting a building regs app and appointing a contractor. On Waverley 1, we had a design and build contractor that went bust. Not the last Christmas, the Christmas before. So we ended up picking up the pieces. So it's really difficult. We then brought the team in-house. It's not just about designing, you've got to think about the funding. So the risk we took when we built Waverley 1, would a bank valuer, would a consumer want to buy it in the first instance? Yes or no? Yes, they did. Would a bank valuer then agree that the houses were worth what we were saying? Thankfully they did. We had a few arguments. And then what do you do? All your post sales, you've got the aftercare, the snagging. So there's a life cycle to all of this. And what we've tried to do with Waverley 1, it was effectively the prototype. Waverley 2, Oughtibridge, Fox Valley, each time we have different iterations. We're trying to, we have a Monday meeting called Sky FYI across the team, where we've got Rebecca, Ryan, Jodie and Tony. So from finance, and Matt's are in customer service and sales, all the way a 360 through the business. What's working? Do we have any problems? What's causing the biggest snag issues? What's causing, what are the buyers? What's the most searched scheme? What do people want? And so on. So we can constantly feed back from all the departments back to make it better and better and better. So would I encourage architects to do it? I'd encourage anyone to do what they feel like they should do. Do architects bring anything to the table? I think we do. I think architects are often sort of ridiculed by the construction industry, especially QSs, who just think we draw pretty pictures and we don't care about budgets and so on. there's a fine line between adding value and taking away value. There's a fine line between value engineering, making something stack up. So it's a really complex process. But I think an architect's mind is creative. I think it's good at problem solving. And I think what we tried to do with Sky House was have a mission. And if it doesn't meet our mission, vision, values, we don't do it. And one of my favourite stories was Milena, one of our customers. She asked what we're going to do with the car park, and we've got tarmac bays, we've got some paving, and she said, well, white lines wouldn't be Sky House, would it? And she was right. So we changed the white lines and we got some stainless steel studs made that had the parking numbers on. And it's that kind of thing we keep testing ourselves with. Is it Sky House? And I think that's what the architect's mind can bring to it. So we are really a blend of architects, accountants and QSers, but we do have a very strong mission, vision, value, which is rooted in architecture and design and sustainability and our social impact.
It's brilliant. It's really encouraging. I guess the contractor leaving you as well was probably a blessing in disguise in a way. Could have helped you. So Neil Upwood asks, David, good presentation. Really good to see how the product has developed through iterative thinking. Feels like it would breeze through Passive House. Have you considered getting certification as another best practice accolade? Good to see you moving to MMC too.
Ultimately, again, it's difficult. Another interesting story. So when we decided to move to SFS steel frame, I built Dunfields with timber frame. We've done, obviously, as an architect, we've worked with all sorts of different types and systems in the past. But we wanted to move to SFS. We liked the fact that it was quite durable. You could leave it out in the rain. It wouldn't warp. It wouldn't bend. And it's recyclable at the end of its life if you ever get to that point. But the problem we then encountered, we spoke to our agents and said, do you like the idea of MMC, of steel frame? Yeah, great, but you need to speak to the valuers. So we then spoke to the valuer. They said, yes, great, but you need to have BOPAS accreditation. And we said, okay, well, what's BOPAS? So we then looked into BOPAS. BOPAS was for really what we perceive as being true modular, absolutely like your bathroom pods, if you like, a house delivered on the back of a truck. SFS steel frame is really two-dimensional modular, like timber frame. Timber frame doesn't need BOPAS, but SFS does. So at the minute in the industry, you've got this real crossover between what's modular and what's not modular. And that's a risk for us as a developer. Do you switch to MMC and run the risk of not getting it valued? I always call the surveyors the Ruperts. You've got to get past Rupert, the surveyor, with his cords on and his brogues, and he's going to look at it and go, oh, I don't like that, it's not traditional, I don't understand it, and therefore I'm not going to value it. You've also got the issue when you start plugging more tech in. Will the valuer like that? Or will the valuer think, oh, actually, I don't like the tech, or I don't value the tech that you've plugged in? So you might have spent £15,000 on an M&E package that the valuer disregards and downvalues the house. So there's this real difficult process of moving towards higher tech stuff, that you might build something that you can't sell, or you might build something that you're not allowed to sell because you haven't got the right certification. So you're constantly battling many push-pull factors when you're designing and building a house to sell. It's not, like I said, it's not just about the pretty picture. So yeah, sorry, answering the question on passive, we're trying to get better and better. We've gone zero gas before 2025. We're looking at infrared heating systems. We'd love to do that because they can be mounted on the ceiling, but at the minute they don't have any sat points, so we can't use them because they're classed as more energy wasteful than an electric radiator, which is nonsense, and so on. So we are looking to innovate, but all the while we've got to be really conscious of affordability. So Sky House was meant to be 150,000 at Waverley. We just couldn't get to that price point. The density that we get sort of dilutes the land value and allows us to sell a little bit cheaper. But everything else that we're doing, the bricks that we use at Waverley are double the price of a national house builder's brick, but we want beautiful bricks. The aluminium windows are probably double the price of UPVC windows. The zinc cladding on the roof is expensive. You know, everything we're doing is expensive, but we're still trying to make it affordable.
Do you reckon that part of Sky House could actually look into material research and development and develop some sort of specific Sky House materials that
we are talking
produce them as well?
Yeah, we're talking to the AMRC about the MMC side of things. So, I mean, how far do we push it? I mean, there's lots of things we want to do with Sky House, but we are really only 5 years old, and you can see with the quantum of work that we've got coming up, yeah, the answer is yes. We'll continue to innovate and look into new things, but there's only so much we can do with our time.
So Leonora Simonite says, thanks, David. Really interesting presentation. Has your design responded to the potential shift in working from home? I'm thinking about needing a quiet space, flexible workspace in the home, as well as technology needs. Also, something we're seeing in larger developments is the proliferation of delivery drivers, which are not catered for in terms of visitor parking, etc. Thanks again.
Yeah, so if you remember the T1, the T1 had a top floor space, which is a study. Effectively, you could have that as a study space. But on our new version of that, which is the next generation one, as I've said in the presentation, it's wider, so the houses are deeper. We've got a series of zones within the next and Waverley 2 and Oughtibridge where you could use the top floor as a lounge, you can use it as a bedroom. If you don't want the wall, you can have it open plan. One of our buyers has converted his top floor into a bar. So we've got different spaces, and it's interesting how each of our buyers live in the house in a different way. So I think Milena, again using Milena as an example, she lives, the ground floor's kitchen diner, first floor I think is a living room, then the next floor is a bedroom, and then the top floor I'm not sure what she does with it. But the floors are really interchangeable. You don't really have to live in it in prescribed rooms. It is flexible enough to do what you want.
CW asks, are the houses sold freehold or leasehold? And either way, why? Also, who is responsible for maintaining the community spaces, gardens, etc.?
The houses are sold freehold, and the reason we do that is because we don't want to have any punitive ground rents for people to pay. But each of the houses joins their own management company, which we appoint a management company to start with, but the residents can then self-manage when they want. And this is another interesting story. So when we were selling some of the houses in Waverley 1, the bank valuers didn't like the management costs, said it was too expensive. That for some reason they've got an arbitrary figure of £500 a year. And we argued, well, why should it be only 500? Why can't they spend £5,000 if they want? If they choose as residents to put a tennis court or a swimming pool, why can't they do that? And we had to lower the service charge by an arbitrary number to get it below 500, to get past the valuer, to get the mortgage approved, to allow them to move in. But we think that's ridiculous. So at Oughtibridge, for example, we've got beautiful gardens. We're putting suds and all sorts of stuff in the middle. That will have a cost, but that cost is borne by all 40 owners, and it will be a beautiful place to live. Why should it be capped at £500? It's for if the owners move in and decide they want to rip up the gardens and just turf it all, that's their choice. We're giving the management of the community to the owners. Similarly, that would happen with the commercial in some instances if we can. Let the community choose what they want to do. So these are the push-pull factors that you don't think of when you design a house. You want to do a lovely communal garden, but then the valuer comes along and says, well, I don't like that because it's costing you every month to pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Neil Upward asks, have you considered an accessible solution for some of variant models?
Oh, what, sorry?
Have you considered an accessible solution for some of the variant models?
Yes, we've got the Skylow and the Skylark. They'll be single story, largely single story. The Skylow has a second floor, but you can choose to use it or not. But on the Skylow, you can live on one floor with an upstairs room that's flexible. And on Skylark, it's a pure single level dwelling. So we're looking at a master plan at the minute. So if you remember the sort of layout of the back-to-backs, sometimes between the back-to-backs, you could do a front-to-back single story dwelling. So yes, we have.
And Damien probably asks, how do you orientate your development north-south, with half the flats getting light AM and half getting it PM, or west-east, so south-facing for half the flats and north-facing for the other half? Depends on the site, question mark.
Yeah, it's a very valid point, and that was part of the difficulty we had in the first instance getting Sky House through the planning system. So what we did with Sheffield, we ran a dummy pre-application, a detailed pre-app, where we had a fictitious site and we went through different house types in a back-to-back configuration. And obviously, again, one of my jokes is we want to give everyone an ocean view, ideally, but that's not possible in Barnsley, Rotherham and Doncaster. And it's not always possible to orientate a house so every room gets south, east and west. What we try to do is respond to the context of each site. So Oughtibridge, I think, is east-west. Waverley is east-west. But we've not had a single complaint from an owner. All the houses are bright. And we're trying to do something that's affordable but beautiful and all those things, and it's not always going to be possible to give everyone dual aspect and so on. And I think if you look at the housing crisis that we've got, we're not building enough. We're getting triple the density, but they're still beautiful houses. If you want some sunlight, go and sit on the roof garden.
So you said you grew the team during the pandemic. How did you find continuing work throughout the pandemic as well? Because I know some manufacturers closed in the absolute first lockdown. Did that impact you, or have you altered the way that you work or operate at all?
So actually for us, for Sky House, the first lockdown was fantastic because it really focused the mind on what we should do as a brand. I've sat at home writing business plans and speaking to Philip, and we decided to bring everything in-house. So go from being a developer to a house builder. So we try not to think like developers, which is outsourcing everything, your consultants, your QSs, to bringing everything in. Obviously, we're not going to necessarily employ plumbers and joiners. We'll still package work out. But lockdown one allowed us to think about what we wanted to do. By the summer, we recruited Ryan. Then Ryan started his recruitment plan. We were all working largely remotely. We started work on the new HQ. That was delayed a little bit. I think they moved in January, February this year. We were hoping to get in by autumn. So instead of having two separate developers, two joint venture partners, Broadfield Holdings and Crossbow, we came together as Sky House in one building. We have remote working now, so people can work from home, total flexibility. We've got our coffee table in the next room where you can hot desk and come and work from there. So a lot of our QSs work on site and between sites because they like it. They're quite hands-on QSs. And in terms of materials and products, I think we've struggled on various things at various times. Things like fridges, I think we're in short supply. Stairs, we're in short supply at one point. Glass, I think currently timbers run out in places. So it's going to be a challenge, but what we like about the team that we're built is we are all working together to deliver the end result, and we're not relying on contractual obligations under a design and build contract, penalties, delays, variations. We can be fleet of foot now. We can speed up builds, we can slow down builds. We're looking at metal staircase solutions now for our houses and how that will work. So we have little design crits with our architects. We get the flip chart out, we do some sketching, and I'm sure it's going to be a challenge for the next 6 to 12 months, but I'm sure it's one that we can overcome.
That's fantastic. What are you most proud of? So this is the last thing, and then we'll wrap up.
When I started CODA in 2003, I didn't think it would be what it is today. And when I started developing in 2013, I didn't dare dream that it would be what it is now. So I handed over CODA to the team in March last year, 2 days before lockdown, to focus 100% on Sky House, because I thought I'd taken CODA as far as I wanted and I desired to do. And I felt that Sky House needed my full attention. So I'm equally proud of both businesses, and yeah, I'm CODA and Sky House. Yeah.
You should be. Well done on both of them. So thank you to everybody. So Faye has just put a link in as well to the feedback form, and we'd appreciate your feedback or any suggestion for future tours. So again, if you have a sketch done during a lockdown, do send it in. And so Faye had posted that link right at the start. Neil's just written, brilliant, David, thank you. So thank you all for attending. I think that's it. I hope you have a fantastic evening. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much to David for a fantastic presentation. It was really insightful. I love the drone shots. I think the sites, all three of them, are brilliant. And I'm looking forward to seeing more Sky Houses. Thank you so much to Faye for not only
Thank you everyone for listening.
Oh, thank you. There's loads of thank yous as well in the comments. So CW says thank you so much. Paul Wainwright says a brilliant and inspiring presentation, David. Thank you. Brendan Norton says thank you. Catalina Ianieta says thank you, Dave. Amazing. I won't read them all. I'll let you read them. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Faith, for making sure this runs smoothly. And I think I'm dead because it's the end of the evening. I hope you all have a fantastic evening and can join us at another SSA event. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Mariam.